How is everybody? Good?
Let's go, Chairman.
We have quite the lengthy agenda, so I'd like to move this along, please. First order of business is to approve last month's committee meeting minutes. Motion made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Strau. Any discussions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Item 1, we do have a list of transfers here, and we need committee approval. Motion made by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 2, we have our treasurer, Mike Swan, at the podium ready to go. Mike,
I'll
take it
move
away.
A and B. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can make a motion.
You can make a motion if you would like.
Yeah,
second.
that's what we just discussed.
We just discussed
And
it
I'll
personnel.
move A and B.
Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Bramer, seconded by Supervisor Simpson to move A and B. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mike, we'll move you down to C.
All right, what I've got before you is a request to allow the county treasurer's office to invest county funds in NICLAS, which is a fund that is out of California that is a secure fund that actually right now is recommended by the New York State Controller's Office as a way to invest money. I've passed out a little bit of brochure on your desk there to just give you an idea. Last week, their fund was paying 2.24% on a daily basis. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor Strau, Queensbury is in this now at this point.
That's correct.
And the county, Washington County is also in it. What we need here is basically a resolution to allow us to get into this. One of the best parts about this investment program is that it's a daily rate, and I can have access to the money the next day. It's better than a CD, which can lock your money up for 3, 6, 9, 12 months or whatever. And the other thing is that we can have multiple accounts in here. So what I'll be able to do is take a lot of our reserve funds, like the highway funds and so forth, and I can put them in there and get a daily rate of interest on each one of those funds. But if we need it for whatever, I can access it and have it here the next day.
Excellent. Yeah.
Without penalty.
Without penalty, yes. Correct. That's a big thing, yes.
Yeah. Any more discussion? Or
I'll move it.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Merlino. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item D.
All right, this I'm going to have to refer to the county attorney's office a little bit, but we've been working on an agreement with Airbnb to allow us to collect the money from them short-term rentals. And I don't know, Mary or Amy, I don't know who wants to discuss where we are with that. I think it would be better for you.
I'll let Amy discuss it because she's been working on it.
Okay.
So Airbnb sent us one of their form contracts and
Amy?
copies of the signed contract.
Can you do me a favor, Amy? Can you just hop up to the podium with...
We didn't do letter D. I don't know if that is...
Airbnb had sent us a copy of their kind of form contract that they've done with other counties, and I also have copies of the Clinton County and Essex County contracts that they have authorized. I've gone through and I've seen a few things that we might want to change. In particular, the contract doesn't allow for, it doesn't explain which of the municipalities the occupancy tax is coming from, which is something that we need to know to distribute the occupancy tax. So I believe that this is more sort of, should we press Airbnb to make those changes or accept it the way that they're offering it? So I was looking for some guidance on that issue before we have a final contract to actually sign.
Supervisor Brown?
I know when I saw the agenda, and I had asked for the contract, but apparently it's not. My direction would be that we should try to push back whatever the county attorney's office thinks that we need to do to better protect the county. We should do that and have it in front of us before we vote.
Yes.
That'd be great.
I didn't get your email until this morning.
That's okay. I know. I was not looking at the agenda till late last night. But my point is, even if it's not ready for today, we can always
Bring it back.
bring it back. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
I think, so I think the reason that we're actually here in front of you right now is that Mike Swan would like to enter into this agreement. We know that the contract needs a lot of work, and we don't mind bringing it back to you. But first, I think we're looking for authority from the board to actually enter into this agreement, because if we don't have that authority, I don't want to take our time to go through the contract and work on it. But we certainly can bring the contract back to the committee if that's the direction before we actually sign it. But I would like authority before we even start working on it to enter into that agreement. Because I think it's a policy decision about whether or not this board actually wants to have a contract with Airbnb.
Supervisor Stroud.
I understand that counties that have made contracts with Airbnb are making considerable money from doing that, so I support that. But I also support the idea of letting us know what municipalities that money is originating from. I agree with you, and so I think we support the contract, but I'd like to see those details worked out.
So do we need a resolution from this committee to move forward with?
We do need a resolution
Okay.
to enter into an agreement, yes.
Okay. Would anybody care to do that?
I'll make that motion.
Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Merlino.
Can I just clarify? Thanks. So we're going to authorize you to enter into the contract, but you won't have the chairman sign until it comes back to us?
I promise you I will bring it back to this committee.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Amy. Michael, you did skip over D.
There will be other people that will look.
I don't have a D on my agenda, so.
It was
Oh, yeah, thanks.
It was a request to authorize
Oh,
the county.
okay.
This is the standard chunky one?
D. Oh, we just did the night class.
We did C, but we didn't do D.
We did C.
Oh. No, I'm
That's
still
just a
not.
typo.
That was by Supervisor McDevitt and Supervisor Merlino. That's the one that we approved
Okay.
was C.
So I'm still not, C, D, oh, E and D are out of order, okay. Airbnb.
C was to
Oh, is
amend
this
the
to all the
policy.
rooms?
It's the same thing.
C was to amend the policy.
Yeah.
Investment
policy, and then we have to authorize membership.
I'll make a motion for D so that we can join.
Right, I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion for item D made by Supervisor Bramer, seconded by...
I don't know why I'm confused, because I don't know why there's two for night class. There shouldn't be two. There should only be a resolution for night class. I'm wondering, because I was just noticing we're supposed to be doing a contract approval for all the rooms with tourism and my office. I'm wondering if that's part of it. I didn't realize that we had two things to do for night class.
And they basically are the same thing.
Yeah. It looks to me like they're the same thing.
I'm going to have Amanda speak to this, please.
So the first one, and we got these from Rob. Rob Lynch reviewed the agenda yesterday and advised that there needed to be two separate items.
Oh, okay.
First
Oh,
one
okay, now I know, okay,
amending
I'm
the
confused,
investment
yep.
policy, and then D is authorizing you to join NICE.
Right, yeah, we have to amend our financial policy, I'm sorry.
All right, I'll
I
make
got
that
confused.
motion.
We do have a motion and a second already. Yep. Okay. Are we all good?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Carried.
Sorry for the confusion.
Boy, this is a tough day. Okay, moving on to item 3. We have referrals from the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee.
Wait a second, wait, sorry. I thought I saw something on the agenda about the treasurer asking to do the contract for the researching the properties in the county,
All the rooms.
all the rental rooms.
Well, the company's name is All the Rooms.
Thank you. That's not on this printed agenda though, are we just going to skip that for today? Oh, it is.
It's farther down.
I'm sorry.
Supervisor Simpson?
Before Mr. Treasurer is done, I just have a question. How much money are we looking at putting into this?
For Airbnb?
Night class.
Oh, night
Oh,
class?
night class.
We're gonna start small, but I mean, we could end up having several millions of dollars invested.
So we're not going to get into a position where we're just tying up. You know what I mean?
That's
If
one of
this
the-
short term,
That's one of the advantages of this group, is that the interest is paid daily, okay? There's no penalty for taking your money out. So if I have, let's say, I got the Highway Bridge Fund reserve, and I have $2 million sitting in there, and we need it tomorrow, I can have the money tomorrow.
But we won't build up our unassigned fund balance.
No,
You know, we won't change those, okay.
no.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, under Office of Emergency Services, we have item A is a request to amend the county budget in the amount of $18,270.33.
Chairman, I'll move A, B, and C.
Okay, we can move A and B. Kevin wanted to address item C.
Okay.
Okay?
He's not here.
I'm fine.
He is here, yeah.
Oh, he came in?
So we have a motion made by Supervisor Bramer to move A and B, and a second by Supervisor Strau. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Kevin, do you mind coming to the podium, please, and addressing item C?
For the emergency services,
Fire training?
I don't have.
Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to pull item, my bad. We wanted to pull item C, okay? We're going to bring it back to committee.
Yeah, that's at the request of the Emergency Services Director. This particular issue needs a little bit more work to be done, and we'll bring it back through criminal justice when it's ready.
Okay. All right. Moving on to Sheriff. Item E, we have a request to appropriate funds in the amount of $159,200 from the general fund unappropriated surplus to the Sheriff's law enforcement budget to cover the cost of the PBA settlement. Motion made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Stroud,
Question.
I'll
seconded by
second.
Supervisor Bramer. Supervisor Stroud.
We just had a lively discussion on the budget process. Now I see PBA settlement, which is something you would have thought that you set aside something for, that coming out of the general fund of unappropriation. Now we have a 2019 fleet purchase and the next one coming out of the general fund unappropriated. And then on the next one, we got equipment coming out of the general fund unappropriated. And the next one, we got furniture, equipment coming out of the general fund unappropriated. I mean, and we just had the discussion about the budget process. Does that mean those were like forgotten?
No,
or what?
Frank, wasn't this the money that you...
This is a proposal at budget time, I believe everybody got that. Following what was proposed, this money was removed from their budget, from the sheriff's budget, and this will come to fund balance, so rather than raise taxes to fund this, it's unappropriated
All right, so...
And if you recall, that, the budget process, at budget time, this was discussed.
Well, I was just thinking that
And also the,
it could have come from the unappropriated fund balance at that time as well, right? No.
then you would be adding it into the budget.
Right.
The 159,200 is what was appropriated in 2018, and that fell to fund balance. That was for the
So with that being said, would we like to move, or at least get it on the floor, for all these appropriations instead of one by one? We can group them. Okay, so that would be...
EFG
I'm sorry? Oh, we did already, okay. Do you guys mind doing that then?
Just say which letters we're doing now? together?
Right, so...
E, F, G, and H?
Okay.
Okay.
So, I'm just getting back to Supervisor Strauss' point, so we're not doing the same thing. Is that what I'm hearing? That we had a long discussion about a salary and appropriated, unappropriated, whatever. So we're just, this is different than what we talked about before.
These were monies, I
Yeah.
believe, that were set aside to pay cash for, correct?
These are items that were removed from the 2019 budget. These are pretty much one-time expenses, they're not ongoing expenses, so they're removed from the budget to keep the tax increase down and to pay cash, basically, over spend money that we've already raised the taxes to pay for these.
At this point, I'm going to have Ryan speak.
Yeah, item E is a bit different from the others. Item E was last year's appropriation for the unsettled contract. We didn't spend it because we still don't have the interest arbitration award, so that entire amount fell into fund balance at the end of December. So now we're bringing it back out of fund balance. It's budget neutral, essentially, because we would have paid it last year if we had a settlement. So that's C. And the others, the intention behind this was to bring these items one by one to committee and have the department heads ask at the committee level and defend it at the committee level, rather than, as Supervisor Thomas said, just throw it all into the budget and raise taxes against it.
Supervisor Bramer.
Just so I'm clear, on E, the 159,200 is still just a budgeted amount. We haven't received, we don't have the settlement, the final settlement.
We don't yet have that,
So
no.
we're still, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Wild.
Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to kind of convey something that I learned from big business. And typically, what you would see happen with something like this is a challenge. You take 10%, 15% out of this budget amount and tell your leaders to make it happen and be creative and challenge them. So if we're truly asking our directors and managers to be good managers, take it out. Let them figure it out. And if they can't quite figure it out, let them come back and ask for some more later. But create some challenges. Thank you.
Did this already come through committee? The sheriff already asked for these.
Right.
So that was vetted through committee, or no? It was, yeah.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Prepared to vote, or any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And that was for E, F, G, and H. Okay, moving on to item I, request to amend the county budget in the amount of $71,448.56 to carry over unused 2016 statewide interoperability communications program grant funds. I was just told that I, J, and K are all carried over funds, so
Move on, please.
I, J, and K, made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, item 4, referral from the Economic Growth and Development Committee. Under planning, there's a request to establish a capital project, H382, and that's the Lake George Invasive Species Eradication, and that's for $800,000. Motion made by Supervisor Strau, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Discussion? Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you elaborate on this? As to what we're creating, how it's being funded?
Is Wayne still here? Is he,
No.
really? Yeah, it is on the form. If you look on item 4 in your packet, it does explain the source of funding down there, and also the purpose of establishment. I could read it, but...
All we have is single sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so the purpose of establishment, I believe, was your question. Warren County was awarded $600,000 from New York State Department of the State to undertake program to eradicate all dense and moderately dense beds of Eurasian water milfoil, an aquatic invasive species from Lake George. So the $200,000 was a project match. But I don't, did you have any?
So this is not something that happened last week?
I don't believe so. No, this has been, yeah.
Well, I know the invasive, let's see, $200,000 is not something.
Right.
Frank, is this part of the budget?
I'm not sure. It's part of...
Oh, it's oh, no, it says, because on here it further says it's contribution, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, project.
Do we have to match it with $200,000?
I don't believe so.
It says here the match will be provided by the Lake George Vessel Inspection and DEP.
So
So the county, there's no outlay of county money here. This is simply a grant with a match.
Right.
And the match is accounted for, so.
Right.
We have to establish an account so that we can work with it. And I can't just take the money in. We have to have a specific account set up for that. So we can work out of that.
Right.
Supervisor Loeb just had the cover sheet, so, good question, good question. Okay, are we good on this? Yep. Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 5 is referrals from the Health, Human, and Social Services Committee. Under Social Services, we have a request to amend the county budget in the amount of $50,000 to reflect the receipt of grant funding from the CAPTA CARA program. Motion made by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. B, request from Office of the Aging to amend contract with the Clements firm to allow for payment of fees in the amount of $1,070 incurred for services provided to 4 Office for the Aging clients after their annual limit for services was reached.
I found...
Siri made the motion. So, and this is a source of funds to be determined by the Finance Committee. I'm assuming we're going to take it out of the contingency. We've got, it's a brand new year, so we've got $275 in here. Motion made by Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt to take it out of the contingency account. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. 6, referral from the Occupancy Tax Committee, and that is to appropriate $5,960 from Budget Code Reserve Occupancy Tax to Budget Code A1325470, $1,000, and 617-470, that's for 4960, to provide funding for 2 separate agreements with All the Rooms Incorporated for Internet search analysis of short-term rentals. Motion made by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Question, Supervisor Bramer?
Not specific to the agreement, but somebody was asking about revenue earlier, and it was on a different point, but my question is, how much revenue do you think we're going to get from Airbnb? What?
If we had collected through 18, my estimate would be about $180,000. And just as an information point, one of the reasons I want to do this All the Rooms contract is so that I will know basically all the short-term rentals that are out there, so that we can audit basically against Airbnb and some of the other companies that are out there, so that I'll know whether or not we're actually getting what we should be getting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right, we're trucking now. Item 7, referrals from the Public Works Committee. Item A, under Parks and Recs, we have a request to amend the county budget in the amount of $4,000 to reflect the receipt of grant funding from the Glens Falls Foundation for Up Yonda Farm. Motion made by Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor McDevitt. We'll get the Glens Falls people in there.
Yeah, with our thanks to the
Yes,
Glens Falls
yes.
Foundation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Here we go, Kevin. Please address item B.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to sort of remind everybody with the committee, I mean, we vetted this in the committee fairly well. The money that's taken in for the festival space at the Charles R. Wood Park is to be used through the conservation easement, is to be used to do any maintenance operations of the festival space as well as the south parcel. What I had asked in committee was that the money that comes in, the revenue that comes in from the parking lot, which is the Westbrook parking lot, which is not associated with the conservation easement and the festival space, the money that's been taken in from there to be used to cover some of that cost as well. We've fallen short for the last 3 years, and I just thought it just for money for events associated with the parking could be used to cover any of the expenses associated with the south parcel, what they refer to as a protected property, as well as the festival space. Some of the expenses we have are the attendance, and then there's certain environmental sort of maintenance issues that we have to do every year on the south parcel. Last year our deficit was, I believe 9,000 and change, but on the parking lot for events we took in $24,000. So I believe the resolution is for Mike to set up another deferred account, put that money in, and we would use that money. It only says for 2018 bills. I'd like to request or maybe amend that resolution to do this for not just 2018 but for the next couple of years, and see how much money is built up in that account. We can always come back and change the resolution in a couple years to see. But I just got the budget from Jim Liebram for the environmental portion this year, and it's $23,000. That'll be going into next year. He's already handed me the budget for next year. So I believe we'll be able to cover those costs if we use the money from the parking lot as well as the events. So that's why I'd just like to say maybe we can extend it for a couple more years and see how much money we build up in that account.
Supervisor Dixon?
I'd like to move that motion. I just crossed the date off. We'll just do it until somebody makes a stop.
I'll second that with the amendment, yeah.
Okay. Make it retroactive, basically? Or
No, not retroactive, just so that all funds collected.
Well, it says 2018.
We need to put 2018 in there. Right.
I was just told it does need to be retroactive because it has to include 2018.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to have the 18 in there.
Okay.
2018 and moving forward.
Does this resolution cover us going forward then, or do we need a second?
We're going to put it in there.
I don't know whether we need a second, but it does not cover it going forward.
Man, I got a lot of...
We'll just put in that as 2018 going forward, so we're not going to
Okay.
scratch it. Okay.
Good.
We'll keep it as is.
Good.
Are you okay with that?
Good with it.
That was your motion. Do we have a
That was my
second?
motion.
I seconded it.
You did? Okay. I'm getting older. Okay.
That's okay,
We have a
they're
motion
yelling
and a
at me.
second. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, Kevin. Item 8, support services. Under IT, we have a request to appropriate funds in the amount of $135,100 from the Computer Reserve Fund to various department budgets for the purchase of computers and related equipment and software. Motion made by Supervisor Frazier to get it on the floor, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. B, County Administrator request to appropriate funds in the amount of $37,599.94 from the West Mount Legacy Reserve to pay miscellaneous fees and expenses and to authorize payment to Today's Options due to overpayment of claims. Ryan, do you want to touch on that?
Sure. This is a Medicare, Medicaid managed care company, or is it Medicare? Medicare managed care company, provided services to 4 individuals who were in Westmount after they reimbursed the county for those services, determined that they had made an overpayment. They requested medical documentation in that review, and we've exhausted the appeal process. We've gotten all the information that we can get together and presented all of that information on these 4 cases. And we essentially owe this money back to the company.
So assuming this gets authorized, what do we have left in the reserve?
Over $5 million.
Okay. Go ahead, Michael.
This is the exact reason why we pushed to have this reserve set up, so that if these things came up after the sale of Westmount, there would be money to handle these things. That's the reason for that reserve fund.
These transactions are routine when you actually own a nursing home, and they would be handled essentially. We would still be doing business with Today's Options with patients, and they would take the money back through a future transaction. But because we no longer own the nursing home, we have the legacy fund, and will require board approval for each expense of this nature.
Okay. Motion made by Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. We all vetted here? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item 9, items to be discussed by the County Administrator. Ryan, I'll just turn it over to you.
Sure. First, any questions on journal transfers? None. Chairman Conover requested that I report to you on the DOH issues that were raised in a prior committee with respect to the transfer of ownership at Westmount back to Mr. Rosenberg. I did send out an email to all the board members as to where this is at in the DOH approval process. The way these work is the staff at DOH will first approve this, then they'll move it on to their professional boards. The public health, what's it called? The Health Planning Council is the ultimate body that makes these decisions. They're appointed by the state, doctors, hospital representatives, people with expertise in the field, and they have subcommittees that will advance these issues up to the final Public Health Council determination. So this particular transaction has passed staff review. It has passed through their subcommittees, and it is on the agenda for the Health Council. I believe it's on the February agenda, I believe February 12th, February 14th. So that, in my experience, and this is not to dissuade any action to the contrary, but in my experience, when it goes through the staff and the committees, it's rare that it won't go through and get approved by the full council. Mr. Whitehead has provided information to the council, which the council has now as part of its review. There had been discussion as to whether the Board of Supervisors also wanted to provide some sort of official communication to be part of that review. If that is the will of an individual supervisor, you can by all means do that. If it's the will of a committee to sign a committee's name to a letter, we would need the approval of a particular committee to do that. And if it's the will to send such a letter coming from the Board of Supervisors, we would need the full board to approve that. So that's the first issue. The second issue regarding the DA salaries, which were mentioned in the last meeting, the personnel meeting. The problem that we're having, we have 7 assistant district attorneys. We have a very large amount of work that's coming down the pike. We have several major trials that are coming up the first part of this year. The district attorney has already lost one of those 7 ADAs. And I believe 3 of the others have been interviewing elsewhere, essentially higher paying jobs. So that's why the issue came up when it did. I am working with the budget officer, Frank Thomas, and with the personnel chair, Kevin Garrity, as well as the 4 departments that employ attorneys to come up with a way to address this that is equitable. The way we handle salaries for most employees at the county is we assign a job grade based on the qualifications you need for the position, as well as the difficulty of the workload. And then we will assign longevity increments that essentially rewards you for being here and sticking with the county. Gives people a little light at the end of the tunnel. We are applying those principles to the attorneys, trying to come up with what would be appropriate grades and longevity increments. We're not there yet. It's part of a debate that we're having with all departments that will be affected. We will not bring anything to the Personnel Committee or to any other committee that does not have the approval of the budget officer. But one of the concepts that we're also working with is to have an element of merit in here. We would not make the longevity increments automatic, as they are with most county employees that are represented by a union. We will give the department head the ability to give the yay or nay on whether an employee will earn their longevity increment. So that's where we're at. We will continue to refine this, and as I said, nothing will come to any committee that doesn't have the support of the budget director.
Do you have item B yet? Do you have item B?
I have not. I was looking to see any questions on.
Go ahead, Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, well, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about Westmount and the transfer of the sale from Mr. Greenberg, who is an employee of Mr. Rosenberg, to Mr. Rosenberg. let's back up 3 years when he totally hoodwinked the board. Many on the board that felt that he was the right person for taking care of our seniors. We go now to today, and this Westmount has gone from 4 stars to 1 star. We've had an individual die in a van from Westmount because he wasn't strapped in. We've had numerous complaints from seniors at the Westmount about the service and condition. I personally can attest to, which I did a week ago, of how poor the service is of one of their centers. Unfortunately, I had to witness that firsthand. And I think it behooves us as a committee and as a board to send a letter vehemently against selling this centers to officially be under the name of Mr. Rosenberg. It's offensive, it's insulting, and I know a lot of people want it to go away because they made bad decisions, but I don't want it to go away. We got to live up to our bad decisions, and we got to correct them. And so I would ask this committee and the board to send a resolution to the board condemning and not vehemently being against Mr. Rosenberg taking over ownership of Westmount.
Supervisor Dickinson?
Do we have any title interest in the center?
At this point, it's up to the regulators as to how they want to treat a transfer of ownership. We don't have a duty to play a part in that.
This is totally out of our hands. What are we talking about? We sold it. They want to sell it to somebody else. It's nothing to do with us.
Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, the seniors, most of them are from Warren County. And
Has nothing to do with the issue.
Dennis, please don't interrupt. I didn't interrupt you. Thank you for that courtesy. The seniors are from Warren County. We embarrassed ourselves, not all of us, most on this board embarrassed themselves when we allowed this process to occur 3 years ago. Now, does he own it now? He doesn't. One of his employees does. But I think a letter to the Department of Health indicating our disapproval of this whole process and the fact that Mr. Rosenberg will now take ownership, officially ownership. He writes the checks and everything else. He's been part of it. I think is the least we can do to show our disdain for this individual and how he treats our seniors in Warren County, Mr. Dickinson. Not somebody else's seniors, our seniors.
Supervisor Dickinson?
Has nothing to do with it. Whether
Maybe
it's
not for you.
Our seniors or not. I've had friends in the family in there, so don't tell me it has nothing to do with me. You're clouding the whole issue, as always. You fought this tooth and nail when we did it. Cost the taxpayers of Warren County $1 million.
That's false.
$1 million. Don't interrupt me. Cost us $960-some thousand. Don't interrupt. Which you've never owned up to. We sold it. We only had one prospective buyer. We were bleeding money from that facility. We were no longer able to maintain that facility as a county, which I was very disappointed in. But the handwriting was on the wall. We needed to sell it. We had one buyer. They bought it. Has the quality gone down? Obviously it's gone down. If we couldn't run it with what we were putting in it to keep it at a 4-star, how were they going to come in and buy the facility and run it and keep it at a 4-star? There's no way. That was a given when we sold it. But we had no choice. So we sold it. Now we have no interest in this at all. I'm totally against this. Nothing to do with us.
Supervisor Wild has his hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with both supervisors here that we need to take care of our seniors, and we really don't have fiscal interest in this facility. I question whether or not Supervisor Beatty's letter is going to do any good, because if they take it to heart and they deny this, then basically what we're saying is keep it like it is, keep it a 1-star. Aren't we really trying to do is say, what can we do to improve what's going on in this facility? And I don't think it has anything to do with whether it transfers ownership or not. We need to look at what we might be able to influence in terms of improving the facility and the care that our seniors are getting.
Supervisor Merlino?
Basically, I have the same thoughts. If it gets back into Rosenberg's hands, we have more control to get on him to improve these instead of the guy that's running it now, that really shouldn't be running it. Well, if Rosenberg gets it back, do we have more control? Not control, but be able to get more questions answered from the top person instead of a stand-in?
Yeah, Supervisor McDevitt, go ahead.
I'm going to support Mr. Beatty in the, I think a little bit of a shell game is being played here, and the New York State Department of Health looks the other way. They basically, a game is being played on the taxpayers of the state of New York by the New York State Department of Health. Mr. Rosenberg had a series of violations. The Board of Health in Manhattan would not approve Mr. Rosenberg. He took one of his employees, he put him on the paperwork, and it was blessed. Dennis, I would argue that we had more than one potential purchaser for...
We had originally 3, but 2 of them disappeared immediately.
Well, one may have disappeared because of, I think because they were discouraged to get involved, okay? Because we made cogeneration the big issue and not the care of our senior citizens. So I think we had 2, and that being Fort Hudson. I thought they were a logical, tangible buyer that in effect said, Fort Hudson even said, I'll take the available property over there, and I will produce housing for seniors, put on the tax rolls, like they do in Fort Edward. So I thought that was a tangible opportunity. But at the end of the day,
they did not want to put it on
the resolution is, do we just stand here and let the Rosenbergs of the world play a game on our senior citizens in the state of New York? A letter basically saying, hey, we object, and we're putting you on notice, members of the Department of Health, that you should not permit this kind of shell game to occur.
Supervisor Hogan.
I suppose we write a letter addressing the real issue, which is the quality of care.
Supervisor Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, I've been on here, this is the 6th year, we've talked about the nursing home, and I know there were many meetings when we talked about the other potential people that were interested in the nursing home, and the one that keeps getting mentioned that was interested that we should have sold it to did not want to purchase a nursing home in the end. So we keep throwing out something that isn't factual, which, you're entitled to do that, but it's not correct. Unless all those meetings over the last 5 years that we've had on this. So the other thing is, I would support a letter. I would like to finish. I also would support a letter to somebody in the state if it's in fact true that the Department of Health is not doing their job, then that's where we need to go with our efforts. Not to get in the middle of something at this level. If there's truly a problem, and this is all a sham, then we need to reach out to the state, the proper people that oversee Department of Health.
Supervisor Loeb.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 2 issues that are being discussed right now. One is the transfer of ownership, and the other is quality of care. Transfer of ownership is a distinct issue. Actually, I like the approach Supervisor Beatty is taking. The issue of the quality of care for our elderly in this county is going to be put on the agenda by our chairman of Health and Human Services, Supervisor Frazier, at our next committee meeting.
Yes, that's last year.
Okay. Any other supervisors? Okay, yes, ma'am. If you don't mind going to the podium, state your name, please.
Hello, I'm Pema Reed, Town of Queensbury, and the seniors are a growing population in our county. It's very important. I agree with Supervisor McDivitt and Supervisor Beatty. And I want to say that these issues for seniors, the supervisors gathered round and supported the effort to get Meals on Wheels on a better footing in Warren County and not handed over to Washington County. And I applaud the supervisors who did that, because you are the representatives of the people, and it is your job, whether you like it or not, to ensure that as much is done as possible. Now, this question of legal ownership, they seem like a bunch of criminals to me anyway. I don't know why it was sold. Seniors that I know that come out of the hospital, some of them refuse to go to any of the center nursing homes. The quality of care is abysmal. They are neglected. I believe that it is the Board of Supervisors of Warren County who should take personal responsibility for this issue and address it with the same concern that you did for Meals on Wheels, and I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. From my perspective, I wasn't here when we sold. I think I would have fought hard against selling it to centers, but I don't know. I wasn't here. I didn't have all the information. But from my perspective, they are all a bunch of criminals. Either one. So it's a shell game. They're going from one to the other and back to the other. But what we really need to do, I think I agree with Supervisor Simpson, we should send a letter to someone in the state getting them to do their job and get up here and protect our seniors.
Would you like to make that motion, Mr. Simpson?
It is an abysmal situation. Yeah.
I think, this isn't just localized. I mean, this is everywhere. According to, you can read the papers and hear about the care of seniors, and I'm not just saying one organization. I'm saying across, it's a growing problem. And I think the state should recognize that we need to come up with a plan to correctly care for these people. They shouldn't be forgotten. They shouldn't be left out. And we should be able to entrust our state agencies to oversee it. It's bigger than just one spot. So I would introduce a resolution to, I don't know how we want to word that. I don't even know what agency it would go to. Department of Health.
Yep.
Somebody that oversees the Department of Health, or maybe the Commissioner, Department of Health. And
well, maybe conjunctively with
Yeah.
with our administrator, maybe we could come up with something. You'd like to make that a motion?
Yes.
And a second that by Supervisor Bramer. Any other discussion? Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, unfortunately, I do have an aunt over there at the centers, and I know my mother just about goes over daily just to make sure everything, falls through, and the care is very scary, and I really feel that I agree with Matt. I think a letter stating that we're against the sale might open up Rosenberg's eyes a little, but I doubt it. But I really think that we need to do something with the state and to put some more heat on how they're running, because it's at both centers in Queensbury and in Glens Falls, and like I said, I think it's more than just these two. It's the quality of care for the older people. It's just, that's wrong. They put in their time and they should be taken care of. So
I think we'll gain more traction even with the paper as far as him getting the word out. It's been up. So as far as the letter, I don't know how much that's going to do. I like your angle, Supervisor Simpson.
I just want to clarify, it wasn't to oppose the sale. Mine is to asking for the Department of Health to do their job, accountability in all of the homes, not just this one here in Queensbury, but other ones, because this is everywhere. And we care about all of our seniors. So,
Supervisor Beatty and then Supervisor Straub.
I don't have a problem with Matt's letter to the Department of Health, but we have a moral responsibility to send one also to the Department of Health opposing this sale to this individual. We spent 3 hours 3 years ago letting him do a dog and pony show, which buffaloed most of the supervisors, and they all said, hey, he's a great guy, let's sell it to him. I was vehemently opposed then. We proved example after example after example how poorly he was doing at his other centers' homes. Yet this board still said, let's sell to the guy. The last minute, the Department of Health said, you got too many problems in your other homes, we're going to wait. And so he came up with the idea, let's sell it to my employee, Mr. Greenberg. Now 3 years later, Mr. Greenberg wants to sell it back to his employer. So I would like two letters, one to go to the Department of Health, and I'll support Matt Simpson on that, and the other one to go to the Department of Health, vehemently opposed selling this and transferring it over from Greenberg to Rosenberg for $10. That's an insult, it's a joke, and we have a moral responsibility to at least do that, at the bare minimum.
Supervisor Stroud?
I'd like to do a resolution also then.
It seems like Supervisor Simpson was on the same wavelength. I have some town issues I had to address. I apologize for that, so I had to leave temporarily. I think if the issue is, and appropriately so, if the issue is the quality of care that our residents and others are receiving at Warren Center, then we should send a letter of concern to the Department of Health saying such. I don't know if ownership has any play in this, but I certainly will agree with Supervisor Beatty. I am concerned about the quality of care too. So I would support a letter asking the Department of Health to make sure and assure that the quality of care gets improved at Warren Center. I would support that. And it sounded like
I believe that's the motion right now,
Supervisor
right?
Simpson already put that forward.
Yep. Yes. And it was seconded by Supervisor Brammer. So on this one right now, any other comments before I vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, that went then. Now Supervisor Beatty, would you like to make your motion?
Right, and I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to the Department of Health opposing the transfer and sale from Mr. Greenberg to Mr. Rosenberg. And we can go into detail if they want examples and so forth, but I think just a basic resolution opposing that from this committee and the county is the bare minimum we should be doing.
I'll second that, and again, a game is being played. A shell game is being played on the taxpayers of the state of New York by Mr. Rosenberg. I mean, and how do we stop that? Doesn't anyone object to that kind of behavior, where we're playing a game on the with the Board of Health, where we're just changing ownership for $10? We can't. We're at a point in time where we have an opportunity to buy a nursing home, that being Mr. Rosenberg, and he's got so many violations against him that the Department of Health will not approve him. So he can't buy the home. So he gets one of his employees, the guy that lives up the street from him, the guy that goes to the same church he goes to, and basically they approve it. Now that's a game, guys. So what Mr. Beatty is asking for is just a letter saying the Department of Health, the people that make these decisions, someone is publicly going to put them on notice that this is a problem and should not occur. Now, Supervisor Simpson, do you agree with that kind of behavior on the part of Mr. Rosenberg?
Mr. Chairman, I would say I'm more concerned about the result of ruining this deal and having a guy who owns it that doesn't want to own it. I'm more concerned of the result of what's going to happen to our seniors by us intervening in this.
I think the way we stop the Rosenbergs of the world is that we call him on it. We publicly embarrass him. And maybe what we ought to is embarrass our Board of Health in Manhattan and to stop the Rosenbergs of the world from buying any more nursing homes and dealing with any more senior citizens. How do we do that?
Supervisor Dickinson.
I'm going to reiterate, we have no interest in this transaction on title of this. None. I agree wholeheartedly with Matt's proposal, support it 100%. That's the way to go. This other stuff is hogwash. We don't even know what's going on. We're just assuming we know what's going on.
Okay, so
I know as much about what's going on as you do, and it's not more. And you can prove it.
All right, so we do have a motion in a second. I'd like to see a raise of hands, please, as to who is in favor of this motion. Okay, we have 3, 4. Okay, and those opposed? Okay, motion fails. Okay.
Could I just ask for a clarification on Supervisor Simpson's letter? Would this letter come from the entire Board of Supervisors? In other words, are we sending this on to the February meeting?
I think we should, to have the full
Okay.
support of the board.
Okay.
Supervisor Frazier is addressing some issues. Do we need to bring it back to Health Services first, or is that not something we need to?
I think ours is just a discussion that Mr. Lowe brought up, that he wants us to discuss. He feels that we should be more involved. He's tried to go to the Department of Health to try to get
Okay.
involved in the county
Okay.
level.
Let
So
it
we're
be
just
that.
going to do some
Yeah.
discussion. on it.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, as to who opposed that resolution, can we have I didn't,
I had mine out.
okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
We had
Oh,
merged.
okay, the chairman. Okay, good, gotcha, thank you.
Did you have something to say, Supervisor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to elaborate on Supervisor Frazier's comment. More than discussion, I'm very passionate about my concern about the elderly in this county and the way they're being treated. And I propose, and we're going to discuss it at the next meeting, I propose that private citizens have very little leverage when they speak to the Department of Health. The Department of Health says, well, we have an 800-line complaint, but they have very little leverage and impact on the actions. We have a big hammer. We are the county. And I'm going to propose, I proposed last meeting, we're going to discuss it the next meeting, that we set up an official hotline in Warren County to represent our citizens. And then forward those complaints to the health department, and also to the governor, and also to Senator Little, and also to Assemblyman Steck, and also to the poster on the Times-Union, so that we put the health department on notice that we are no longer going to stand this. We want them to do their job. We want the owners of these nursing homes to do their job. If they can't give us a 5-star, step aside and let someone else do it. Thank you.
Very nicely said. Okay. Did you want to address item B?
I will.
We can thank Chairman Conover for that.
Item B under my agenda, number 9, is to appropriate funds totaling $249,600 from the Vehicle Reserve Fund to various departmental budgets for the purchase of vehicles. This is a resolution that we typically take up in the beginning of the year. Each year we budget approximately a little less than $300,000 as a contribution into this reserve fund. So this is to move the amount I stated out into the operating budget.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Ryan? That's all. Yeah. Okay, item 10 is we need approval from Finance for the items in personnel that was discussed, and those are 3, 4A, 4B, 4F, 5, 6A, and 6B. Motion made by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There are no pending items. Privilege of the floor. Anyone wish to address the Finance Committee? No? I would like to thank all of you who have hung in here. We had some debated conversation here, but it's all healthy and it's all good, and it's for the best of Warren County. So with that being said, a motion to adjourn made by Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Strauss. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
One more.
Oh, boy.